Are you wanting to create a highly prosperous photography business doing what you love? Or maybe you have a great business already and want to up your game? Then you're in the right place. Master craftsman photographer Lucy Dumas and her guests are here to support you on your journey. Now here's your hostess and tour guide, Lucy.
The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. That's a quote for today by Alan Watts. And I picked that because today we're going to be talking about this thing called AI. And I'm not going to define it yet in case you don't know what that is. And if you're like, who doesn't know what that is, then okay, cool. And you'll understand. So before I get started, I want to invite you to go visit my new and improved website, lucydumascoaching.com, Lucy with an I, and I have updated it and added a little more flow to it, and I'm super excited. So go there, and there's some free gifts if you want to grab those, and be sure to listen to my every other week mini class that is tied to the 7 ideal client getting steps, something titled like that. So anyway, all kinds of goodness on my website. So I'm so happy to have a conversation today with one of my very, very favorite humans in the whole world and his sidekick. And so I get to make a new favorite friend, which I love. So my friend Arthur Rainville has been creating stunning photographs wrapped in intrigue, atmosphere, and romanticism for over 50 years. He's been displayed in museums on 3 continents. He has been touted as and earned the title the Poet Laureate of Photography. He's sensitive, he's creative, he's always moving forward, which is why I love that he's taking a look at this artificial intelligence and having conversations with that. I met him at West Coast School, and since then, he has helped me stay current, get excited about new things, and not just, sit around complaining about life or doing the same old thing. He's received the Helen Yancey Lifetime Achievement Accolade, and there's only been, at least then, there were 12 awarded in PPA's 150-year history. Whew.
Who writes this stuff?
I don't know. I think the stunning, wrapped in intrigue, atmosphere, and romanticism might be you, Arthur. All right. And he is with the lovely and also highly achieved, good word, Toni Marie. She has had a business in Iowa since 1982. She's a fine art photographer, and she also does volume photography. So one supports the other and vice versa, I'm guessing. She's a master craftsman, master artist, has earned way too many awards for me to list here. From PPA National Service Award. She has served this industry for years, and she loves to share her passion for photography and art with fellow artists. She has an emotional soul, which to hang out with artists, you have to have an emotional soul, right? And every art piece, she's intending to get that emotion into each one. And she teaches workshops to help people connect their emotions and get their stories into their art. So phew, again. So welcome. So excited to have you on my show.
So nice to meet you.
You too. Fellow 1982, what year or what month did you say, I'm starting my business or get your business license? Do you remember, Toni?
No, that's way too long ago. I can remember yesterday sometimes.
So mine was February of 82. So it was a good year for photographers, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
It-
Sorry, say what?
No, the only reason I can remember the year is I remember my daughter was 1 when I bought that first professional camera.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
So
What was that camera?
it was a Veronica.
Oh, so
Yep.
yeah, yeah,
The film days.
yes. My first one was a Mamiya 645, but when I realized that the flash didn't sync faster than a 60th and that you had to vertical and horizontal it, I switched to Mamiya C330s. Do you remember those, Arthur?
Yeah, I only had 3 of them.
I still have my 3.
They make
Somewhere.
great door stops now.
Yeah. Actually, I loved it. When I got Hasselblad's, I still use the C330 for the candidates at wedding receptions because they're so fast to focus, and I found Hasselblad's too complicated to get sharp. Anyway, enough about me and equipment. What was your first camera, Arthur? Or your first pro camera, we'll say.
It was probably a Veronica too, that I got for myself. I just kind of liberated my father's. I'm second generation, so I just kind of used all his stuff.
Yeah. So I didn't realize that my dad had a Canon AE1 until after he passed, and I was looking through things, and it's like, why didn't I know that, and why didn't I steal it from him?
It's not even so much about what we had to start with, it's where we are today. I mean, all I use now is we're on it right now. I do everything with my phone.
Interesting.
I don't even own a camera, shame.
Interesting. Well, the phone,
and pretty soon, someday, you'll just blink and that'll be it.
Right. Okay, so our topic is, I guess, the good and the bad and the ugly about IE, maybe I call it that, something like that. So if someone doesn't really know everything that's happening in the world of artificial intelligence related to photography, can you share what is going on?
Well, you'd have to look first at the whole world of artificial intelligence. And to do that, you'd have to stay on the news 24/7 because it's exploding right now. And most of that explosion has happened in the last 2 months at the most. And so what it's going to boil down to is artificial intelligence against what human intelligence we can hold on to. And
so
artificial intelligence. Right. So artificial intelligence.
What it is. What's
right. So artificial intelligence is supercomputers gone nuts. What they've finally done is got it to the point that a computer is taking in all knowledge of all mankind for all time. It just knows everything there is to know.
Okay.
So it's nothing more than a fancy computer at this stage. The stage that we're going through right now is it's starting to figure out stuff on its own instead of telling it what it should know. The stage we worry about is when it thinks it knows more than us and it starts acting that way.
Sure.
And that's really what we talk about in our workshops and stuff. The war between humans and machine. And it's going to come to that. We're going through a nice period right now in photography with it. We're going through the period where it is making our lives easier as far as workflow and all of things like that. We're going through a stage that I equate to the early stages of digital, and then when Photoshop came along. And we just had all these beautiful new opportunities to create that we couldn't do in the old film days. Now we could do things in layers. Now we could do all this magic. And we've plowed along that way for a few years. And now this is going to bring it to another whole level. And so photographers for a while are going to do really amazing things. They're going to be capable of doing things they never were capable of before. Until the day comes that everybody out there who could be your potential client will be able to do the same thing. Then we have a problem. And that's what we basically are talking about here is, what do we have left? What's left for you and I as photographers that an artificial robot intelligence, even sitting there in front of you, talking to you like it's a real person because they think they are at this stage. Where's the difference? The difference is they can make an amazing picture, but they can't make an amazing picture of what you have in here.
Sure.
And the only place that comes from is you and I, Lucy, sitting and talking to each other and me understanding. We've talked this many times. So I've always used the definition: a picture is of somebody, but a portrait is about somebody. And no machine is going to care enough to find anything about you. And if they did, they wouldn't understand it. Right. And that's the only thing we're going to have left, our humanity. And that's what we have to work at now and getting better at.
So, yeah, those are deep.
I know.
As usual, Arthur. So, Toni, can you dial in a little of the practical, like the websites, the things that are actually happening on a, I know that Photoshop has a new feature. There's other websites. Can you kind of give me a little bit of a hardscape of the things that photographers are discovering and using and playing around with?
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there now, and I don't spend a lot of time on them. But there's Midjourney, there's Dolly, Photoshop's coming out with that new one. They're beta testing it and stuff now. And I know there's more. I don't play with them a lot. It's not really what I'm into. But I see a lot. I see stuff posted every day that people are making, and it's making some wicked cool backgrounds. It's, doing some really neat things, just like Arthur said. Right now, it's a great tool. It's a lot of fun. But what are we going to do when our customers don't need us to do all of that?
Right. So I was thinking about, I don't know, I was watching TV and an artist was throwing a pot, which is when you sit down with clay and a wheel and a spin. And I realized we can buy machine-made pottery any day of the week, but that particular artist gets thousands and thousands of dollars per piece. So part of me is not afraid of artificial intelligence. Movies have been using artificial backgrounds for decades. But I mean, yes, there's the end of the world where they're just going to take over. I'll probably be dead by that time. I don't know, Arthur. Maybe not. I'm in 100.
Maybe not.
In my eyesight. But I'll handle it. One other new tool that I've been using some, but at the same time, I find it gives me ideas, but I would never just copy and paste, is the AI for words. So ChatGPT, which has exploded in the last 6 months or so. I went to a podcast event and there were all these speakers talking about ChatGPT. And I was like, what are you talking about? And it is interesting. I think it's a great way to play around with titles of your work just to get some inspiration. I know copywriters are shaking in their boots because of that.
Yeah, you have a few people on the picket lines out there because of this.
Yeah, the writers.
Yeah. So Goldman Sachs estimated last week that different versions, whatever it is, but artificial intelligence in general, will eliminate 300 million jobs worldwide. That's a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, it will cure cancer. It will do wonderful things. Nobody will have a job to make any money to eat, but so
Arthur, you're
in
usually
our little world.
I'm just hold on. You're usually Mr. Positive.
Yes.
And all of a sudden the end of the world is coming for you. What's the deal?
But see, I can't worry about the rest of the world. I they're on their own. I'm worried about our world.
Okay.
The world of portrait photographers, the world of professional photographers.
Mm-hmm.
We can survive this. And it comes from what we talked about a little bit in the beginning. There's 8 billion people on this planet. You cannot photograph them all. They're not going to all be your customers.
Mm-hmm.
So the trick is finding the right ones for you, finding your tribe. It's the buzzword right now, I guess. Finding the people that understand. A big part of our job is not going to be creating magical pictures. It's going to be creating clients that understand what we can do.
Right.
The business part of this is going to get more important than it ever was. We're going to have to be good translators of why they still need us, why we still need them. And some of this comes from the McDonald's syndrome. You know, when McDonald's came along, it's a hamburger, it's meat. It'll fill you up. It's not good, but it's good enough for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Then the phones came along and people started doing their own pictures. They took the snapshot idea and just went nuts with it. We can't worry about all of those.
Okay.
We need to find the right people for us that appreciate and understand us. And we need to build a whole new synergy between them and us. We need to create a product that's so meaningful to them that they will understand that they still need us to do this. I believe with all my heart, this is going to be the best of times. Maybe not for the world, but we can do this.
Okay.
This is our world, and this is what I care about right now.
Great. I'm glad to hear that positive Arthur in.
Oh, yeah, I'm not worried a bit about us.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and when cell phones came out, especially, now that, I mean, holy cow, the quality is awesome. People were like, oh, that's the end of the world for portrait photographers. Well, first of all, I need, with my new website, I need some new photographs of me. I could set up my phone and get photographs, but I could not do what would come from having someone behind the camera posing, encouraging me, discovering my best sides. Best sides. It's 360. So anyway, the best angles of my face, the best focal length to be the most flattering. Like, I cannot do that on a phone. Right. I know that a lot of youngins have figured out their perfect selfie pose, but which actually doing family portraits, it's so hard to get the girls to stop doing that. The teenagers, posing themselves. Anywho, so great photography, great portraiture needs someone at the camera.
Yes, and that's simple results right there. Yes.
So
yep.
I'm not afraid.
We have to show the magic, and we have to translate for them why that's special.
Plus, the experience. I frequently, when I'm coaching, I remind my clients that what they're really selling is themselves. People are lonely. People like attention. People appreciate artists and creative people. So if they could get the same results from an AI or from me, they're going to treasure what comes from me because we've interacted. You have thoughts on that? Either one of you?
Some of it's a time thing too, right?
Some of it's a what?
A time thing. How long it took you to do it. John Singer Sargent did 37 on average different sessions with people before he was finished with a painting.
Wow.
Well, that whole big experience made them cherish the value in it and stuff. You know, Toni spends forever working on her stuff. Go talk.
What are your thoughts on all this, Toni?
Yeah, I think the experience is going to be one of our main things. People really crave to talk to someone in person and to have someone hear and understand them. We just took pictures of a ballerina at our last workshop. I don't think anyone has ever asked her in her whole life, "What does this mean to you? Why are you so passionate about it?" And she cried telling us. And the note she sent back was that she not only loved the portraits, but she's remembering that experience for the rest of her life because we gave her something no one else ever had. And I think we've got that for all of our clients.
Right. I did a session. It actually was the second in a family, and I'd photographed them when the kids were like 8 and 10 and 12, something like that. And then 10 years later, we went to Balboa Park. Arthur knows Balboa Park quite well, right? And it spent hours photographing the family and individuals. And they have a summer home here, and they also live in the DC area. And whenever they would come to San Diego and go to the park, they would go to the spots where I photographed them and repose themselves to re-experience the fun that they had. You can't get that with AI.
Right. And I think the same thing about the fine artwork. You know, what I hang on my walls is not something that I would go to a store and just buy one of those prints, you know, that are there. But I hang work from artists that I admire. And every time I look at that, I think of them. And I think that connection, if we can make that with our fine artwork too, to our clients, it's something personal then that they have on their walls, that they think of someone, and that will still be valuable.
Well, and some of the things I appreciate about the Photoshop beta right now is that you can extend a background. You can do some things that don't take away from the fact that there was a personal experience in the capture. But as artists, you know, if I were a painter, I could paint whatever background I want. I could do whatever I want. So I appreciate that with the AI tools, we can do some things that as photographers, we, you know, couldn't do or were difficult to do. So I think it can be used for good and not evil. Thoughts on that?
They have some work to do on some of it. For instance, what AI is doing, as I mentioned at the beginning, it is looking at every picture, every painting that ever was that they have access to on the internet. So it will take your picture and put it in the background of some other photographer, because there's no way to separate that out.
Right.
You can't stop it. That's one of the problems we have. MIT this week partnered with a new build up, and they have a way to make that block so it can't do that. So there's going to be give and take for a long time here. Let's hope it all filters out and we come out on the right side of it.
Right.
Writers are having a hard time with that. A word is a word is a word. And that's why you've got companies that are just saying, I don't need you to write this anymore. I can just tell AI what I want it to do, like you said, chat. So there's a lot of stuff that have to get worked out. Let's cross our fingers that they fix that stuff. But in the meantime, we got to work on us. We got to work on making pictures that are really meaningful and real, and then helping people understand why there's no machine going to do that for them.
Right. Yeah. When I first saw an image score 100 that had basically 6 different photographs as a part of the composite, it looked like a magic moment on the beach in the late part of the day with a dog walking in the perfect spot and a couple in the perfect spot and a little river of water. And it got 100. And then when I learned, oh, that was a composite, I became very, I did not like that. I did not think it was fair to compete with someone that had the Photoshop skills. Now it's, it's all mixed. And if something is in the PPA world, if something is a composite, I'm not sure where the rules fall, but the moral of this story is the change happened, digital's happened, and good, clean, beautiful photographs still can score really well, and beautiful composites can score well. So I had to get over myself and accept that, it was a new world. So thoughts on that?
Well, how new a world is it? So if John Singer Sargent is painting a family, he has the ability, or had the ability, to paint in certain aspects of the setting they were in, or not.
Right.
Paint in other things. So there's nothing new to that. Where he would shine, and where all the greats, whether they were painters or photographers or whatever through the years, had that innate ability to understand the right expression that just said, this is, Sargent has a classic painting that's 3 little girls, and one of them is fronting the viewer and one of them is tucked in the back, and you can tell exactly the personality of those kids.
Right.
All time looking at that.
So
that's what we have to do.
I have
the rest of it's just bells and whistles.
I have that poster framed in my home. It's 4. It's actually 4, but the 4th one is very hidden. But yes, I relate to that little girl that's in the front.
There you go.
And so, yeah. And also, why is that painting worth millions? But my poster, maybe I could sell it for $70 for somebody that's already framed.
That's another story for another day, but yeah.
Well, but it's connected because
it's
something that was made by the creator.
Yeah.
It's theirs, even if they use all kinds of tools to make that, it's still our art. Right?
It's an original, and that's what we should be peddling, is the idea of making that original.
Right. So there was some of the notes that y'all sent me had the word Tin Man in it. So what do you mean by Tin Man, and how can we separate ourselves from the so-called Tin Man way of making images? That's a new one on me. So Toni?
Well, yeah, that's just the analogy of.
So I'm going for Toni on this.
You got one, because it's if you think about it, it makes you smile.
Yes. Okay, but Toni, what do you mean by Tin Man?
So yeah, Arthur coined that, but it's from the Wizard of Oz, and the Tin Man was searching for his heart, right? He knew he didn't have any emotion, and that's where AI is right now. It's trying to find a heart, but it can't find a heart because it doesn't have a soul. But I think also we've kind of, I'll speak for myself because I do a lot of that volume work to make money, and that also does not have much of a soul, right? You do what you can do in 20 seconds with a kid, right? But I think we've all gotten a little bit, since it's so easy now to take 1 million pictures, that we forget to take the time to really connect for the one that matters, and the one that's got all your heart and all their heart in it. And I think that's kind of why we need to retrain ourselves a little bit to go back to really taking the time to connect the hearts before we push the shutter.
I agree. Even my high school senior portrait, it was 15 minutes, but the photographer was very present and very complimentary in a not a creepy way. And was one of the first people that ever said, you are a very attractive young lady. I mean, I didn't get that at home, and I had so many self-doubts about that, and it impacted me, even though, I'm talking about it, let's see, 5 years later, just kidding. Many years later, that session with him was powerful. So even when we've got, the us, like photo booths, and people stand in front of a photo booth and do their own posing, those things are fun. But when there's a human involved, there's just more to it, even if the image is what you're doing, the volume. Do you think that's true, Toni?
I do. One of the things I talk about quite often is the superpowers that we have as photographers. We don't think of ourselves as being able to change the world, but we can change someone's world strictly by how we connect and speak to them. Not only by taking images that bring attention to, maybe things that are wrong in the world, but just say a teenager that's having those doubts, or I mean, you can save a life even
Mm-hmm.
just by giving them the self-esteem, by giving them the knowledge that they are worth, maybe more than they think. And
Right.
I went to one seminar one time, and this will live with me forever. The person teaching said, if you want to be a better photographer, be a better human. And
Mm.
I took that to heart, and that simple sentence changed me. Right?
How did it change you? What
I
did
mean,
you start
just
doing differently?
we tend to look at people like, oh, this is a certain body type. Now, what am I going to do to pose them to hide this or to hide that? And instead of thinking things like that, what if we just simply think of every person as perfect as they are
Yeah.
and treat them that way and photograph them that way, talk to them that way? I mean, that is just a whole different mindset than I'm going to hide half of you behind this wall, or I'm going to, do this or that to try to make you into what I think is perfect. What
Mm-hmm.
if we just simply acknowledge they're already perfect?
Right. Right. Yeah. I was at a workshop, and the teacher uses a lot of liquefy to make people, and she said, look normal sized, which, you know, we're all normal size because we're our size. And it's great for art, it's fun, it's interesting. But I love what you said about embracing people where they are. Now, of course, we're not going to photograph someone showing them like I can look like 1,000 pounds, or I can look a lot less, depending on how I'm posed.
Right.
And either way, I look like me. So of course, we're going to want to use our eyes and our heart to bring out the best in people,
Right.
generally. But yeah, unless if you're photographing some senior person that's super wrinkly, that gives them all their character. We don't want to airbrush that all out, right?
No. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those are the people that, my goodness, they really want somebody to talk to them, right? Because nobody
Right.
does anymore.
Right.
So, boy, can you make a difference there.
Yeah. So in your fine art world, Toni, how do you, and Arthur, because Arthur is the emperor of fine art, I think. So how is what we're talking about now woven into, doing your art that is not with a person?
So that type of art is really more getting my own feelings out. So there's two feelings, right? If you're doing a client, there's their feelings, and that's what matters most. But in my kind of stuff, it's more the things that I deal with. It's a lot of art therapy. It's a lot of, just getting my own emotions out.
Mm-hmm.
So
And yeah, Arthur, how about you? Do you have an answer to that question?
It's always an answer.
I know. How is
The answer is Time.
Time.
That's the answer to everything, right? So we've been on a roller coaster ride in society, 100 miles an hour. Everything is faster. Everything is going to be quicker, better, packed in more channels on TV, more of everything. And yet we're never satisfied with anything more than a minute. We always want the next great thing, the next great piece of equipment as photographers. We're always looking for the next. We've taken language where we would sit and you and I would be sitting there talking to each other, and yet that's gone for the most part. Here we are, at least we're doing this, but we're not together doing it. You know, talking on the phone, a stage, better than just typing better than nothing, but we're not taking time to appreciate it. I mentioned John Singer Sargent, 37 sessions. I bet the average portrait session is, like you said, 15 minutes or something. Do you get to know the person in 15 minutes? He got to sense you a little bit. He got to say something that made you feel good. You had a little bit of connection there. Imagine if you really took time as a photographer to understand and get to know that person sitting in front of you. Now, it's complicated, of course. If you're going to spend lots of time, you're going to charge money accordingly. So now the business side of this all comes in. I understand that. It's one of the things we talk about in our workshop is maybe you need to start by building a whole different business module. Don't mess with what you're already doing. Don't mess what already works for you. Create this new aura of you, the caring, you, the person that's going to take time to make that one magical, special portrait that will be like that John Singer Sargent and last forever. But it doesn't happen like this. And it doesn't happen with bells and whistles of the Tin Man helping you or anything else. This is you, one-on-one, you.
Right. One of my favorite books is The Little Prince. Do you know that book?
Yeah.
And
behind you, somewhere.
Did you know that in the Alsace region of France, there's a Little Prince amusement park?
Yes.
And my mom's side of the family is from that region. So I think it's interesting that that favorite book, he's from that region. Okay, so for people that don't know the story, the little prince lives on a planet and he has a rose on the planet and he tends the rose and he cares for the rose and he keeps it under glass. And then he goes traveling. He ends up on Earth and in part of the story, he finds a rose garden where there's thousands of roses and he cries. And the fox who had befriended him asked what was wrong. And he said, something about, these roses are, it turns out my rose is nothing special. And the fox says, the truth is, it's the time you wasted on your rose that makes it so important. So that's what you're saying, is the time that we spend connecting, or the time that we spend doing our creative process at the computer or with a paintbrush. It's all of that. It's the being with. Yep. Have you guys discovered the book called The Creative Act by Rick?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I think everybody's been required to read that if they're any kind of a creative period right now.
Yes.
It's the buzzwords. Yep.
Yeah.
I love it so much that I won't read the last chapter because I don't want it to end.
With my brain, I could start again and,
You're coming up on the last chapter for the second time, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of the quotes early that I think relates to the things that we're talking about, I loved this. To live as an artist is a way of being in the world, a way of perceiving, a practice of paying attention, refining our sensitivities to tune into the more subtle notes, looking for what draws us in and what pushes us away, noticing what feeling tones arise and where they lead. So to me, that's the antidote to AI, is that AI cannot, we can use it as a tool, right? But we can't, you know, mine the gold of, you know, how we see in the world. Does that make sense? My thoughts, you guys, on that?
How you see and how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
The feeling part. There's no way that if Sargent spent 37 times sessions, hours on each one, that he did not get to know the people in that he was painting.
Right.
He got to use the technical side of him, do the posing and lighting and everything, you know, do all that stuff. But he got to know the personalities, and they got to have a harmonic resonance with him, so that he knew exactly how to honor them in that picture.
So I can almost hear a bunch of people thinking, but Arthur, I don't have time for that. I can't afford to take the time.
Can't afford not to.
Right. Right.
Can't afford not to. That's why I said, don't mess with already what's working. Leave your business right where it is if it's working for you. Take the time to do this separately. Make it a separate offering. And it may come to the point that you won't do these for your business and make a living at it. Maybe these are what you need to do just for you, just for humanity. There's X amount of people out there waiting for you to arrive. You were supposed to do this for them.
Right. I agree.
And I think, you know, we don't have to spend 37 sessions like he did. If you're an empathetic person, if you truly just care, you can make connections faster if you train yourself to do it. You don't have to spend 100 hours with someone to really, I mean, I call it kind of falling in love a little bit. You know, even if it's a 5-minute love or a 15-minute love or whatever, if you truly connect to that person, you know, it doesn't have to be 37 hours.
Right.
It just has to be real.
I love that.
And there's ways to do that. That's some of the stuff that we teach in our workshops and stuff, how you make those connections, how you spin that whole stuff. I mean, there's lots of people out there teaching lighting, and we teach some lighting from different perspective. And but I don't think anybody's actually helping people make this kind of a session, how you make this connection stuff. Yeah, it's not, you know, we've been talking 37 sessions. We're talking one good, pure session, the one that you get to know somebody enough, and it doesn't have to be forever. Like Toni said, it can be a short length of time if you know what you're doing and you know how to understand the other person and what you need to do to celebrate that.
Right. Right.
You don't want to screw up happy hour.
For me, it starts with having a good phone call, which is a dying art for people. But, you know, it separates me from others because a lot of people are doing their portrait work, their bookings, everything on emails, message, texting, Facebook. So yeah, getting personal. So I have one question. Well, I have two questions before we wrap it up. So one, tell me about the workshop and how people can discover it, because you guys are going on a world tour, and some of that world tour is on Zoom and some of it is in person. So
you got this one, Toni.
Deal.
Yeah. So they can discover, we have a Facebook group. It's called Epiphany. They can find us there. The website is long. It's in the chat and people can see that.
But what is it? What are you doing?
So the workshop, we are going into, just like we talked about, ways to create those heartfelt portraits and connect to your subject. We're teaching some constant lighting so that when you make those connections, you don't flash at them and start over with creating the mood again. So we're using the LED lights, and that way you can just keep talking as you're shooting. You can just keep connecting with them. So that's one of the things that's a little bit different.
Okay, so hold on. So you're doing a tour where you're going, I know you're going to be in California, Southern California, in the flesh for a couple of days, right? It's a 2-day workshop. You're going to some other cities, you have some Zooms. So I'm looking for, first of all, like who, what, where, and when. So it's a workshop called Epiphany, and I'm trying to
it's
get
3
the
days.
details out.
It's basically 3 days. The first day is a retreat.
Okay.
And the point of the retreat is for you.
Okay.
It's not just about learning techniques and stuff. That comes in day 2, which is the workshop. And that has the lighting and a whole lot of stuff in there. But the retreat part is how to do what we've been talking about here for an hour. How for you to connect with your client. And we have a series of questions. I mean, for some of us, it's easy. We're extroverts. We never shut up. For other people, that's more difficult to work out. So we have ways to help you with that stuff. How to build. See, what's happening during that session is you're trying to understand them. They're trying to understand you. You're not only trying to make the portrait that's right, but you're also trying to build a sale at that point. So you're building credibility at the same time. You're building the price of it. All of that stuff. So all of that comes under retreat, and then the workshop is a lot of technique stuff. And then there's an optional 3rd day, which is half of it contemporary business, because I have some different approaches on how you find that client, because you got to go to them, find them, and then start from scratch with them.
Okay.
And then Toni teaches a whole afternoon on painting in Photoshop in a way that AI will never do that.
Okay.
Right, Toni?
Yep. A hands-on, and I think make it easier for people than a lot of instructors out there. So
Okay. So how many, I know you're doing Orange County in September 2023. Do you have others of the in-person lined up as of now, or are those?
So we're in Georgia in the middle of August. Then California, then we're in Minneapolis in the first part of October. Towards the end of October, we're in Spokane, Washington. And then in November, we're in the Dallas, Texas area. And that's it for this year.
And what's the online? I know you're doing something Zoomy too.
That one is the Georgia one. We're doing that one. Also, they can sign up online for that one. So mid-August.
So it's a combo.
In other words, we're going to live Zoom the whole 3 days.
Got it.
For those people who can't come to us, this is your chance to get this whole thing. You can get it live on Zoom. You can even have the rewatch thing. Is that a word?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
And it's so much better in person because you get to hug Arthur and probably
you get to play
hugs too. All right. So last question. So this is for each of you. Is there something either you wanted to mention that you haven't yet, that when we say goodbye, be like, oh, I wish I had mentioned that? Or what are your last thoughts? What are your parting thoughts on that? So
go for it, Toni.
You want me to go first?
Yes,
please.
I guess our parting thoughts is, we really just have a heart for people and for photographers and artists in general. And we really just want to help. And I think that this is what our industry needs right now. Like Arthur said, there's not very many people out here teaching this. Everybody's teaching technique. And technique will only get you so far. I think you have to have this heart stuff, this emotion, to really cross that bridge into becoming an artist and to really connect with those clients that are never going to ever give you up once they fall in love. Right?
Yeah. Thank you. And Arthur, what's your last word? for now.
Well, Ruth Bernhardt years ago said, you can make a lot of very pretty pictures, but unless they make you cry, they really don't have what they're supposed to. Maybe it's my age or something, but I end up crying more than the clients do.
I love that about you.
I think you need to honestly love. It's like Toni said, that's the bottom line. If you do not feel it, you certainly can't elicit it from your subject. There's only so many people that you will put on this planet to cross paths with, and every one of them you have to love. And
you do.
I love you.
He's a heart with legs. Okay, y'all, love bunnies. Thank you so much. And I want to remind people to stay tuned for, it's going to be hard to summarize this, but my little wrap up. And I just want to thank you both for having this rich conversation, as I expected, Arthur, that I would think Toni is amazing as well. And yes, I do. So I have to go look up more of her photography and see what she's doing creatively.
We will see you in September.
That's a song.
We're gonna be rich
in September. I don't know if it's Beach Boys, but anyway.
No, it's not.
You will.
Okay, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, Lucy.
You're welcome.
Bye, Arthur.
Bye.
So that was fun. And, you can tell I have a big crush on Arthur. And remember to check out my lucydumascoaching.com website, Lucy with an I. And there's a couple free gifts. One is about marketing and the other's about marketing with different twists. Let me see. Can I summarize this? Well, this conversation was about artificial intelligence, and at first there was sort of a doom and gloom, the world's coming to an end. But for us, we can be fine no matter what happens, as long as we bring ourselves, as long as we make connections, give time to our clients or our art. That there's no substitute for what a real artist is doing. That's pretty much what I've come away with. And let me see. He talked about not having a Tin Man approach to making images, meaning having no heart in it. So though we can create all kinds of things through artificial intelligence, it's not going to have that personal touch. And as humans, we want personal touch. That one of the hardest things with the pandemic is that separation from people. That was, for me, it was physically painful to not get, I think there's some kind of mirror neurons or something that we interact with each other on a subcellular level or something when we're in person and looking at each other's faces and smiles. So glad you're all listening, and I will have another exciting episode coming up soon. So bye for now.
You have been listening to The Highly Profitable Photographer with Lucy Dumas. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please rate, subscribe, review, and share. To connect one-on-one and learn more about our coaching programs, just go to lucydumascoaching.com. Until next time, go have fun photographing and selling your work.